You probably saw my fellow Rebel colleague Jay Faye's video on the alt-right white nationalists. It certainly got people talking and has people who call themselves alt-right a little upset with us. You see, the alt-right claims that they are the ones who got Trump into office. But is that true? While there is no doubt that the election of Donald Trump was because of an alternative movement that propelled him to the presidency, I don't believe that the movement that put him over the top was the alt-right, the Pepe memes, or a revival of white nationalists who came out of the woodwork to elect him. No, I'll leave that conspiracy to the mainstream media. The truth is, the movement that pushed Trump over the top was active in front of our eyes for years. It was the Tea Party. People who for 8 years had organized and resisted the most left-wing agenda and president in American history. Those that rallied for basic freedoms to be upheld. And those who cared and knew the facts about the liberal agenda on gun control and wanted to push back hard. I'm talking about evangelical conservatives who saw an administration hostile to religious liberty and freedom. Those that were able to take back Congress and eventually the Senate from Democrats in the elections from 2010 through 2014. I'm talking about every single one of those who fought back against the Obama administration's overreach, especially those who were victims of the partisan witch hunt by the IRS, who unfairly targeted conservative groups at the direction of the administration. But I'm also talking about the thought leaders of the Tea Party too, people like Steve Bannon, who was a very influential figure in the Tea Party. If you go back and watch the speeches Bannon made in that era, so much of what he said back then, he and the Trump administration are doing today. So much of the shift in the GOP policy is based on the revival of economic nationalism, something we know Steve Bannon is very much behind. And sure, yeah, there were other Tea Party leaders like Glenn Beck who were never Trump, but the results of the election were clear. Never Trump never reverberated down to the masses of Tea Party voters who by November 8th were almost unanimous in casting all their ballots for Donald Trump. The reason why so many principled conservatives and evangelicals were willing to vote for Trump despite all his personal controversy was because of the authenticity of the promises he made to them. He promised he would be pro-life as president, and he is. He promised to choose his Supreme Court picks from a list of true conservatives, and he has so far. He also promised to take on Obamacare, the driving force behind much of the early Tea Party resistance, and it turns out he is, though we'll have to check back later to see how successful that one goes. Let's also not forget the grassroots of the Republican Party in Middle America had been looking for a candidate for years who would get tough on illegal immigration, and while only Donald Trump brought that to the table during the Republican primary. But the biggest reason he won white working class voters across the Rust Belt? Addressing bad trade deals and jobs, jobs, and more jobs. Or as Trump would say, bringing back manufacturing, big league. But I'm wondering if you're noticing what I'm noticing, that despite the efforts of the dishonest fake news media to convince us that Trump's election was because his campaign was somehow dog whistling to racists and white supremacists, he was in fact appealing to the Tea Party and the evangelical base of the country in the ways I just outlined. But the alt-right and people like David Duke seem to side with the fake news media on this one. They actually think that somehow Trump's victory was made possible because of a wave of white nationalism. Well, I call bullshit. The evidence just doesn't add up. For the Rebel.media, I'm Christopher Wilson. Thanks for watching. You know, for just $8 a month, you can become a premium subscriber of The Rebel and get content that you won't find on our YouTube channel.